Hello and welcome to Relatable Code. In this video, we're going to talk about sealed interfaces in Kotlin. So let's get started. Now, I already have some code set up for this video. It's something very basic, okay? I'll walk you through it. Let's suppose in our library application, two different types of events can take place. Only two types of events, a library event or a user event, okay? We'll talk about those in a little bit. We have a data class book, which only contains a title, an author, and a genre. Okay, a genre, which is an enum class, as we've previously discussed in a previous video about enums. I encourage you to watch that before this video. Okay, and we have a data class borrowed book, which contains the book that will be borrowed and the user that will borrow this book. This borrowed book data class will implement these two interfaces, library event and user event. Okay, in the implementation of a library event, you have to implement show event details, which is this function. Okay, it's only a static function which prints out library event, the book titled, basically whatever is the title of this book. Has been restocked, for example, okay, in our library. And with respect to user event, you have to implement the show action details like this. Also another static function, which prints out user action, user, and whoever your user is, which borrowed this book, borrowed the book title, book.title, okay? That's basically everything that's written here. And in our main function, we're creating a book in order to borrow it, and we're creating a borrowed book. Okay, we're calling it val borrowed book event, which is our book and the user that borrowed our book. Okay, in our case, the user is Alice. We're calling two functions as well: show event details and show action details. Okay, if we run our function, our main function, it's going to print out these two events, basically. Okay, this one and this one. And that's fine, actually. But the title of this video is Sealed Interfaces. So why do we need sealed interfaces if the normal interface can already provide this basic functionality? Okay, let me show you. Let's say I have a function called handle library event. Which will take a library event and include a when statement. For example, if our library event is our borrowed book, like this, and we will add our else block of code. And here we have an error because we need to write is borrowed book. Okay, because we're checking for the type if it is of type borrowed book. That's it for normal interfaces. Our library event may be a borrowed book and it may be something else. But if you replace interface library event with sealed interface library event, you don't need that else statement anymore. Okay, similar to sealed classes, you know every single type that will inherit from library event at compile time. Okay, so you don't need an else statement because you're sure that every library event can either be a borrowed book and only borrowed book. Okay, because that's the only data class that is inheriting from library event. And as you can see as well, sealed interfaces can be implemented just like normal interfaces. So you can implement multiple sealed interfaces as well. Okay, that's a huge added value when working with sealed interfaces, because if you're trying to use a sealed class, you can only extend a single sealed class. Okay, but as with normal interfaces, you can implement multiple of them. Okay, same thing goes for our sealed interfaces. And that's a very powerful feature for sealed interfaces. Okay, so you know all the classes that inherit from this sealed interface, and you have control over your when statements. Okay, which gives you something called type safety, because you're sure that library event in this case can only be borrowed book, so you don't have to handle any other conditions. Okay, that's another added value. And for another advantage of using sealed interfaces, you might get a better understanding of this later when we work with multiple modules in our application, because at the moment we're only working with a single module called new project. Okay, but let's say you're trying to develop a library or an SDK, for example, and you have some interfaces or classes which you only want to inherit inside this module. You can't do that with normal interfaces or open classes and abstract classes, but you can do that with sealed interfaces and sealed classes as well. Because when you define a sealed interface or a sealed class inside your module, no one from outside that module can inherit from them. Okay? And that's a really huge added value to use sealed interfaces and sealed classes. Okay? Now, you might wonder when to use an enum, when to use a sealed class, and when to use a sealed interface in Kotlin. We already discussed the difference between enum classes and sealed classes in Kotlin. As with enums, you only have constants, okay? These constants can't have any state or behavior when you define them. But with sealed classes, I believe we created a sealed class in a previous video, library operation like this. You can have data classes which inherit from this sealed class, and every single data class can have its own state or behavior, okay? And that's a really huge value, which you will use a lot in your code. Okay, you can't have this functionality with enums because enums basically are constants, okay? And that's when you use sealed classes. What about sealed interfaces? As you know, sealed classes should provide the identity of your classes if you want to inherit from it. Sealed interfaces just need to be used to add some actions or behavior to your classes. Okay, so if you have a borrowed book, it should, for example, extend from a sealed class called book if you want that type of behavior. Okay, because you can only extend from one sealed class, but you can implement multiple interfaces or sealed interfaces. Okay, that's basically when you use interfaces. That's when you want to add some behaviors to a class, and you want those behaviors to be controlled, basically, because you have control over who can inherit your sealed interfaces and who is inheriting from your sealed interfaces, basically. Okay. Now with sealed interfaces, as you know, you can't pass parameters like this, for example. Okay, because this is an interface in the end. You can't pass parameters to an interface. You can only do that with classes. Okay, so keep that in mind when you want to use sealed interfaces. And that's basically it. Okay, when you want to pass parameters, you have to use sealed classes. And for identities as well, when you want to define an identity for your class. As for adding some behaviors to existing classes, That's when you should use sealed interfaces. Okay? If you find my type of content to be relatable, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for future content, and I'll see you in the next video.